1190 AM, 107.5 FM.
Line standing by, Nathaniel Cogley, a professor down there at Tarleton State, and an oft visitor, I guess we can say now. This is, Nathan, what, probably our fourth or fifth time to talk together?
Maybe sixth, Pat. I always enjoy being on your show.
Well, always love having you on. Great insights. So, a couple of, I'll let you grab this and run with it, but coming out of New Hampshire last night, a couple of slight surprises for me. I thought Biden would at least hang on to fourth, but he slid all the way to fifth place in New Hampshire. My other big surprise was this moderate surge of Amy Klobuchar, and at the top of the rung, Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg are still clinging 1 and 2, fractions of points apart. They just keep swapping back and forth who's first and who's second. Your take on last night?
Well, Pat, I don't always get it right. I thought Governor Steve Bullock of Montana had a shot at Iowa, and that clearly didn't happen.
No, that one didn't happen. You're exactly.
Yeah, I thought the wheels falling off Biden was inevitable. This guy got 1% in Iowa, 2008, gaffe-prone, over the hill. So fifth place in New Hampshire doesn't surprise me at all. He has great name recognition, so when they do these polls and they're presented with some names, a lot of people know the two-term vice president, but a lot of voters don't make up their mind until the last week. Combine that with the impeachment trial focusing on Hunter Biden and his activities, which raised suspicion amongst lots of people. That didn't surprise me. I also did an interview on a Minnesota station a long time ago, and they said, well, what's wrong with the Klobuchar campaign? I said, nothing's wrong. There's 20 candidates. She's got 5%. She's making every single debate. She's managing her funds well. And it's like the opposite of Kamala Harris, who blew $50 million, didn't even make it to the first state. Amy Klobuchar has stuck around and survived while other people dropped out. And she's presented herself in the debates as that moderate alternative. And if people thought Biden was going to fall apart, they're going to look for the moderate alternative. And she's been there to pick it up.
Well, and if she somehow never does end up on the top, if it's either Sanders or Buttigieg who eventually secures the nomination, wouldn't Klobuchar have to be one of the first running mates that they would be very tempted to look at?
Well, a number of things. One, she's a winner, so she's won her Senate races in Minnesota by big margins. She hasn't lost races, so that's her mentality coming in it, is to win it. But I would think you're right. The thing about vice presidential nominations is they can pick anybody. They don't have to pick someone running. But I do think, Pat, in a brokered convention, there's deal making, and they'll need to put someone in the VP slot that brings delegate support behind them. She's good for a number of reasons. She's a moderate. She's a senator. She comes from a swing state that Clinton only won by 1.5% last time. There's a number of reasons why she may very well be a good VP selection for whoever is the nominee.
You know, we're having this to where Buttigieg barely wins Iowa. Sanders barely wins New Hampshire. I don't know who's going to win Nevada. If Biden doesn't win South Carolina, he's beyond done. But if we get through that, and if we do have the first 4 states going to 4 different leaders, and then we get to March and we get to Super Tuesday, you've got 10 states going there in Super Tuesday, 11 states there in Super Tuesday. It could be a real jumbled mess. Will we probably know by midnight on Super Tuesday with pretty good probability whether the Democrats are heading to a brokered convention or not?
I think that would be a good sign, and one of the keys is, can Bloomberg get 15% in some of these states, because he's running great ads. I've been watching football games. They're back-to-back. You don't need to win these states. You need to get 15% to get delegates. Also, the regions are very diverse on Super Tuesday. You know, I'm predicting a brokered convention, and all the brokered means is it has to be worked out. No one's got a majority of delegates. Now, could that deal be reached before they show up in Milwaukee? Maybe. Or is that deal going to have to be reached at the convention center after the first round? Maybe that as well. But I do think it's very plausible. One thing to pay attention to is we don't take Tom Steyer seriously. You know, he's not very charismatic. He's getting 1 or 2% nationally. He is spending the most money in South Carolina that anyone has ever spent in South Carolina.
Really?
He spent $14 million on ads. He's got 93 staffers. He's double digits in the polls in both Nevada and South Carolina. Those are his states that he's been targeting. He's also a billionaire. It's not only Bloomberg in the race. So, again, Biden is not inevitable for South Carolina. He's going to have to compete for that. So, yeah, I do think Bernie's kind of well-positioned for Nevada, and I just see the wheels falling off Biden. If he can eke out some southern states, maybe, but, his days are kind of done for this cycle.
Well, one of the things about Biden is everybody kept hyping the fact that he's got a lot of people nationally, and he's got some structure nationally, and he does. But if he comes up, if he's like third in South Carolina, an awful lot of the money is going to stop pouring. It's just going to stop coming in because he will have lost the ability to gather all them and gather all their attention. But on top of that, even though she finished ahead of him in New Hampshire, isn't Elizabeth Warren at the top of a very long slide?
Some people say Elizabeth Warren needed to win a state. I disagree in terms of Iowa and New Hampshire. She needed to come in second place. She needs to position herself as the progressive challenger to the moderate or the establishment acceptable challenger to Bernie. And by not coming in second place in either state, that was very damaging to her campaign, and she very much underperformed in New Hampshire. Yeah, I do think the air is coming out of Elizabeth Warren's campaign. Now, if she makes it to Super Tuesday, I think both Massachusetts and Oklahoma are states, so she could try to stick around and win something, but the idea that she's going to be the unifier to get a majority of delegates, I think that ship has sailed.
Well, and not only is Massachusetts a neighboring state to New Hampshire, but Boston is the main media market that also blankets New Hampshire. She should have had a stronger showing than she did.
Yeah, and we were looking at who's going to win the left wing of the party. Is it going to be Warren or is it going to be Sanders? And I was thinking if it's Warren, can Sanders concede? He's been building this movement for a long time. Now we see that Sanders isn't going anywhere. He bettered Warren in that left-wing vote of the party. And the question is, when is Warren going to concede? Because she's not getting the wins that she needs to have the momentum to carry her to the convention.
If Elizabeth Warren gets her plug pulled, do her people, by a large percentage, do they run to Bernie? Are we going to go socialist to greater socialist here?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. Definitely there's some Warren supporters that will go to Bernie. But if you look at when Warren was climbing up, she was taking votes from Kamala Harris at that time. And when Warren was coming down from her peak, Buttigieg was surging. And I also think that Amy Klobuchar could pick up some of that Warren vote. They're both, female senators. So I do think the Warren support will not go all to Bernie. I'm not thinking Bernie's the nominee. I don't think it's that simple on the math. He's just got a great movement. He's got loyal supporters that are going to turn out. He's got stamina for this thing. He's going to reach the finish line, but he might not be number one when he does.
And it's just weird that here he is, nearing 80. He's had a heart attack, back in October, and yet the largest pocket of people supporting him are the 30 and unders. It almost doesn't make sense.
Well, you're right, absolutely. He has 42% support for people 44 and under. I'm sure 30 and under, it's even higher. And guess who's number one for people 45 and over? It's Amy Klobuchar at 27%, just besting Pete Buttigieg, the youngest. This is good for Klobuchar and Buttigieg to have this older support. They have more money. They show up with better reliability to the polls.
Don't you think? Let's just get really wild. Somehow Klobuchar wins, okay? The whole thing. Doesn't she stand with who she is, what she is, the way she comports herself? Don't you think she could actually present a tougher case against President Trump almost more than anybody else on the roster? Because she's not a Hillary Clinton. She's not an unlikable, dishonest person the way Hillary was painted out to be. She's a hard-working politician.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think their best two matchups of who's actually in the mix at this point would be Michael Bloomberg and Amy Klobuchar. I think Trump beats Sanders. He beats Warren. He beats Buttigieg. He beats Biden real easy. But, yeah, the politics of Minnesota, which is a swing state, is good national politics to run on. The politics of Vermont and Massachusetts are not good national politics to run on. And Michael Bloomberg, the battle of the billionaires, that would also be a showdown. So, yeah, Bloomberg or Klobuchar, my God, a Bloomberg-Klobuchar ticket is about the best they could do. So, yeah, those are the competitive matchups where I still might make Trump the favorite, but I would give the Democratic ticket a shot.
Well, depending upon how many more Bloomberg videos of the past come to the surface, where he came out with some pretty racist comments that are coming back to bite him now. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, sure. All these, videos people dig in the past. So yeah, that's not favorable. But we've seen Trump survive some videos and some clips. This is part of the cycle.
Well, Nathaniel, I tell you what, if it doesn't arise for another opportunity, let's make sure we again at least talk to each other after Super Tuesday, because things that are even murky now will probably be coming a little bit clearer then. I always appreciate you, sir. You have great insight. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Thanks so much, Pat. Appreciate it.
Talk to you again. Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, head of the Department of Government at Tarleton State University. Pretty even-handed, the way he deals with politics. I like that. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I like the even-handedness and just the coming out saying, here's where I think things are. I think that's where we need to be.